Hello, welcome to IST 653 Digital Libraries. My name's Mark Wolf, and this is the welcome video for the online course, and you're going to get to learn a little bit about who I am and some of my work history and how I got interested in doing digital curatorship. We'll start out with my first computer. I always think that's a great place to start, to talk about computers and how we all got into them and learned about them. My first computer was a Commodore 64. The Commodore 64 was cutting edge, probably in the mid-1980s. I got this computer when I was in middle school. It had a whopping 64K, not megabytes, not gigabytes, not terabytes for sure, kilobytes. It was a very, by today's standards, a very weak computer. Even your little iPhones have more power than the Commodore had. For my computer, I had a disk drive. This was a 5¼ inch disk, floppy disk that you could put in a disk drive, and that's what you used for storage. And I also had a cassette drive, which is hard to believe, but it used audio cassettes to store digital information on it. So that was my first computer. After that, I didn't own any more computers. I didn't get another one. I had that maybe into high school, and then I didn't really need one, so I didn't own one throughout most of my later teen years and through my 20s, and it wasn't until about 2000 that I bought a computer. So most of my childhood and early adulthood was pretty much an analog world. But since 2000, computers have been a big part of my life. It's really what I do in my day-to-day work, and when I was in graduate school I used them all the time. So I thought I would talk about a little bit of my education. I went to Buffalo State College, not UB, they get confused a lot, but it's Buffalo State. And when I was there I studied history, and so I did a 4-year degree in history. I got a BA in history, and once I was done, well, before, as I was finishing up, I learned about a lot about historical documents and so forth, and I was thinking, well, what do I want to do is to become a professional? So I thought about going to library school, but at the time, libraries, the notion was that everything was going to be, computerized, digitized, and so on and so forth. And at the time, I was, as I said, kind of an analog man, and wanted to be interested in older things. So I learned about the archival profession, and at the time it was considered, well, that's where all the analog, the dusty, the print, the paper, the books, that's, if you want to do that for a living, that's what you need to study. So I did that. I applied to several programs and ended up coming here at the University at Albany and studied, did the MLS program. It's no longer called an MLS, but MLS at the time, with a concentration in archives, and then also did an MA in history in the dual degree program. So while I was here, I took the intro to archives and manuscripts, loved it, and then I learned about a program, a research project that was partly based here at UAlbany, also partly based in Canada, called the Inter Pares Project. It was the International Study on Permanent Authentic Records and Electronic Systems. That project needed a grad student to work on it, and the more I learned about it, the more it became interesting to me. The project basically was looking at electronic records, or digital libraries, more or less, and how to keep electronic records both authentic, long-term, that means preserving them and making sure they're accessible, and also being able to access them. They could be PDFs, which are pretty easy to access. We'll talk about that in the class, but it could also be multimedia formats where you have maybe a video performance or a website that someone's preserving. And so there's a lot of problems with that, with preserving them, and those are the things that this project was looking at. So as I said, I was an analog guy up until then, and all of a sudden I thought, well, here I can get a job and make money, and all of a sudden doing digital seemed a lot more interesting to me. So as I got into the project as a graduate student, I found that the problems facing the digital world on how to preserve digital documents, books, and so forth were really interesting problems, and looking for the solutions was also equally interesting. So I did that for I think a year and a half until I graduated, and then the project administrator position opened up for the project. And so after I graduated with my MLS and MA degree, I became the project coordinator for Interpare. So I did that until 2006. And then after that, the project ended, and that's how it is with soft money. It always ends, so you know when it's coming, and you have to look for a permanent job. So I did that. I went to the Albany Medical College and worked in the library for a year there. It was sort of a sidestep for me. It wasn't really archives work, but it was still really interesting work because I got to work with digital systems, which I became really interested in and wanted to increase my knowledge. And there I worked on what would be their equivalent of Blackboard. They had an open source project called Sakai that they use. Sakai is an open source course management system, and they do things a little differently there. They actually host the course management system in the library, so I was the administrator for that and got to learn how to not only administer the system, but how to train fellow librarians on how to use it, but also teach the faculty on how to create a course, how to use it, the testing tool. A lot of the things you'll actually be using in this online class in Blackboard, it was very similar things I did in Sakai. So I did that for a year, and then the position that I'm currently in now, curator of digital collections, there was an opening there, and I applied for it and got the job in 2007. And I've been in the same job since 2007 at the University of Albany. I work in the Emmy Granander Department of Special Collections and Archives in the Science Library, and a lot of the work, almost I'd say 80% of the work I do there will be work that I'll be teaching about in digital libraries. So pretty much everything we'll learn in this course, this is stuff to one degree or another I do on my day-to-day job. So I'll be happy to when I can share real life experiences I've had, but then we'll also get to talk a lot about textbook types of things. So I think that's pretty much it for my introduction. I want to say welcome again. There'll be more videos coming about the actual syllabus and the course itself, but for now I want to say welcome to IST 653.